Good morning. Calling to order the Joint Committee on Water and Land and the Committee on Corrections and Military Affairs. Today is Thursday, April 14th, 8:30 a.m. and we are at the State Capitol in Conference Room 430. Thank you folks for all being here today. Our first measure is SCR 19, requesting that the Joint Base Pearl Harbor, Hickam, and the Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation of DLNR collaborate to establish a recreational area in the East Loch of Pearl Harbor. First, to testify with comments is Todd Tashima from DLNR.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Tashima,
Todd. Thank you, Todd Tashima for DLNR. We stand on our testimony offering comments.
Thank you. Next, via Zoom, we have Larry Verre from the Pearl City Neighborhood Board Chair.
Yes, good morning and aloha, Chair Tarnas and Ono. I'm Larry Verre, Chair of the Pearl City Neighborhood Board, and I'm submitting testimony for our board members and the residents of Pearl City area. On November 26, 2021, our board unanimously passed a resolution stating our requirement and requesting a public recreational boating zone be established for the East Loch area of Pearl Harbor. Our resolution is forwarded with this testimony. During the past 4 decades, the Navy has allowed their morale, welfare, and recreation services for military members and dependents to enjoy small boat sailing from the Rainbow Bay Marina in East Loch of Pearl Harbor. The Navy established a restricted area in East Loch where military members and their dependents could enjoy this type of recreational activity. The Navy has routinely provided updates on the water quality improvement of Pearl Harbor and the successful establishment of growing oyster beds, not only in the East Loch of Pearl Harbor, but other areas of the harbor as well. Both IA Pearl City for the northern shoreline of the harbor has a great area of opportunity to establish a light capability for the public to enjoy small boat sailing and paddleboard recreational activities. Provided the Navy could establish a restricted zone like Rainbow Bay Marina MWR operations, this expanded area off the north shore of Pearl Harbor could effectively be used to the public without jeopardizing security for Pearl Harbor. Furthermore, if this resolution is approved, it will allow opportunity for the community and the Navy members to volunteer and remove excess debris off the shoreline, preparing this type of recreational activity in East Loch while beautifying the Pearl Harbor Historic Trail for future generations to enjoy locally from Salt Lake, Aiea, Waipahu, and Pearl City areas. I most strongly urge you to support and approve SCR 19 SD1 that will greatly improve relations between the Navy and the public. It is truly a win-win for all to enjoy. Mahalo. You guys have a great day.
Thank you so much, Mr. Verre. Next, we received testimony in support from Charmaine Duran from the Pearl City Neighborhood Board. And we received individual testimony from Samuel Mitchell in support. Is there anyone in the room or on Zoom that would like to testify on SCR 19? See none. Members, questions, comments? Oh, excuse me, please.
Thank you, Chair. Leimana Damate with the Hawaii State Ahamoku. And I'm sorry I don't have written testimony available. I will follow it up though. I would just like to mention that the area of Pearl Harbor has 13 ahupua'a that flow into Pearl Harbor. That means all the water from that area flows into Pearl Harbor. There are Native Hawaiian practitioners that still practice down there. We had asked that you at least think about that. And otherwise, we would support this resolution from what I've heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mate. Is there any further testimony via Zoom? If not, members, any questions or comments? We're going to go right into decision making for SCR 19. So the chair's recommendation is to pass out this, the vice chair's recommendation is to pass out this measure as is. Members, any questions or comments? And then since also the CMV committee and the WAL, Water and Land Committee is the same members, we're gonna do it a little differently because we don't need to go back and forth as much. Okay, seeing no comments or questions, we're gonna go for the vote. For the Water and Land Committee, the Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass out as is. Chair, could you please take the vote?
Thank you. Vice Chair's recommendation on SCR 19, SD1 is to pass unamended. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Ganadin.
Aye.
Representative Kobayashi.
Aye.
Representative Kong is excused. Representative Morikawa.
Aye.
Representative Ono.
Aye.
Representative McDermott is excused. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, sir. And handing over to Vice Chair Ganadin.
For the Committee on Corrections, Military and Veterans Affairs, we're going to be doing the same vote, just for procedural purposes, why don't I just call it? Chair Ono. Aye. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Bronco.
Aye.
Representative Kobayashi.
Aye.
Representative Kong is excused. Representative Morikawa.
Aye.
Representative Tarnas.
Aye.
Representative McDermott is excused. Chair, the measure is adopted.
Thank you very much. And we're gonna go ahead and go right into our Waterland agenda. And the first measure is SCR 64, which is authorizing the issuance of a term non-exclusive easement covering a portion of state submerged lands in Napili, Kaanapali, and Kaanapali, Maui. Our first testifiers from DLNR via Zoom, Mr. Kevin Moore.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Kevin Moore, DLNR Land Division. The department will stand on its written testimony in support of this measure. We're available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Pat Lindquist from the Napali Bay and Beach Foundation with testimony in support. Is there anyone via Zoom or in the room that would like to testify on this measure? If not, members, questions, comments?
Question.
Please, Representative Kobayashi.
For DLNR,
Yes, good morning.
is this a new construction or
No.
simply to maintain an existing beach access stairs?
So there
The
wasn't,
wording I'm sorry, the wording in your testimony includes new access stairs.
right. So there was an existing concrete stairway there. It has been basically destroyed by wave action over the years. And this is a replacement access in a slightly different location made with different materials. So it's going to be a Trex type of access stairway down to the beach.
I see. And if this is not granted, what would happen?
The foundation, the Napili Bay and Beach Foundation, who has obtained a grant in aid for this project, I guess it would, its planning and efforts for this project would be for naught. There would not be a convenient access for the public down to the beach from this bluff, because in the coastline in this area, it's like a bluff down to the beach. So you would have limited or less public access down to the public beach area.
Is this public access available to the general public or just a particular landowner or property?
No, the access connects from a public road in the vicinity, goes on to state land down to the beach. So it is definitely intended as a public access for the general public.
Thank you.
Representative Kobayashi. Members, any further questions or comments? Okay, moving on to our next measure, SCR 119, urging BLNR to rename the Russian Fort Elizabeth State Historical Park in Waimea, Kauai as Pa'ulaula. First to testify is Kurt Cottrell from DLNR via Zoom.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Kurt Cottrell, Administrator, Division of State Parks. The department stands on its written testimony in support. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Thank you, Mr. Cottrell. Moving on, we have in-person testimony from Leimana Damate from the Hawaii State Ahamoku.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning,
Morning.
Chair, and members of the dual committees. This support letter, we're in strong support. This support letter comes from Connie Turalde, who is the Moku representative of Kauai, and from Billy Kaohe-Lavli'i, who is the Po'o of Kauai. I'd like to read part of this because these were his words. And on behalf of the Hawaii State Ahamoku, Mano Kalani Po, Moku of Hawaiian Mea. They represent Native Hawaiians and members of the public trust who are part of the Ahamoku process, particularly in the Ahupua'a of Waimea, Kapena, Kekaha, Waiaha, Opelu, Ka'apaloa, Nona Mahiki, Kahele Nui, and Kolo. Connie Turalde is a kupuna of Waimea who learned his genealogy and lineage from his aunt, Alita Kauohi, who is now in her 90s and still active. They both are direct descendants of Ali'i Moku Kaumuali'i. This is the Ohana who is responsible for the statue of Kaumuali'i that today overlooks Waimea. In their long service to their people, the deepest wish is to restore the original name of the site to Ka'ulaula so that the mo'olelo of this wahipana shared and the aina that cares for the iwi kupuna is honored. They stand in strong support of this resolution. Thank you. Thank you.
Mahalo for your testimony. You received testimony in opposition from Dr. Kenneth Conklin from the Center for Hawaiian Sovereignty Studies. And we received testimony in support from Hailama Farden from the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs and individual testimony in support from Mauna Kea Trask. Is there anyone via Zoom or in the room that would like to testify? Seeing none, members, questions or comments? Please, Representative Morikawa.
Thank you to Kurt. Yeah, thank you. I think when we heard the House version of this, you had mentioned that you guys had taken the sign away. So when I went home, I was surprised to see the sign still there. However, there was like black paint put over the Russian word. And so I think there was an article that came out about possible vandalism that occurred in that. But I believe when I went home last week, the sign was still there. Do you know if we can do a better job of blocking out the Russian part of it, or is the sign really going to be taken down?
Well, when I spoke last, DOT had taken down the external highway signs indicating Russian forts. So Larry Dill, the deputy administrator over on Kauai, he had removed the highway signs. And yeah, our wooden park entrance sign has been vandalized. And yeah, we're going to do a better job. We're going to have to probably route that out or paint it down, or, you know, if we put the money together, just make a brand new sign. Our next step is to go to the land board first and just do the official, you know, redesignation. And then once we get our budget stabilized for next year, we can look at a brand new sign for that location.
Yeah, my husband and I were talking about it. We're thinking the least we could have done was maybe put a piece of board over it to at least block the whole thing out. But yeah, good to think about it, because looking at that blacked out Russian to me is more prominent now. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, no, we've talked to our district superintendent, David, and you know, he can MacGyver a temporary thing over it so it's not as unsightly.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you for all you do.
Members, any further questions or comments? Please.
Yeah, my gratefulness to the DLNR and to, I suppose, the drafting agencies for educating me as to the history of this incident that happened over 200 years ago, and the use of this fort by the community and it as a final resting place for King Kaumuali'i. I had no idea before I read this. Thanks so much.
Members, any further questions or comments? If not, moving on to the next measure, SCR 159, which is urging the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development to develop a plan to include a specific role for the Native Hawaiian community in the coastal zone management plan. First, to testify in person is Ms. Leimana Damate from the Hawaii State Ahamoku. Thank you, Mr. Mate.
Thank you, Chair. Leimana Damate, Hawaii State, Ahamoku. We stand in strong support of this resolution and stand on our written testimony. We'd like to just point out that the Native Hawaiians have, especially the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs, have been very active in the original formation of the ocean zone management from the 1990s. And ever since then, Native Hawaiians working through the Department of Land and Natural Resources, the Ocean Management Division. We've been working with them on coastal zone individually. So we stand for individual ahupua'a. We stand in strong support of this. The people on every island stands in strong support of this, that are participants in the Ahamoku process. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mate. We also received testimony with comments from Mary Alice Evans from the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, testimony in opposition from Dr. Kenneth Conklin, Center for Hawaiian Sovereignty Studies, and testimony in support from Philip Stevens from the Kalamaula Mauka Homestead Association. And that is all the testimony we have. Is there anyone via Zoom or in the room that would like to testify on SCR 159? If not, members, questions, comments? Seeing none, moving on to the next measure. SCR 174, which would be supporting the County of Hawaii's efforts to pursue U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Continuing Authorities Program funding for the restoration of Kahalu'u Bay on Hawaii Island. We have testimony in support from Dr. Holeka Goro Inaba, Council District 8, North Kona, Hawaii County. Testimony in support from Maurice Messina, Hawaii County Parks and Recreation. Testimony in support from Friends of Hanauma Bay, Lisa Bishop. In support, the Kohala Center, Cynthia Punihaole Kennedy. In support, Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition, Ted Boland. Also in support, Malama Pukea Waimea, Denise Antolini. And support, individual testimony and support from Rebecca Villegas. Do we have anyone in the room or on Zoom that would like to provide testimony? Seeing none, members, any questions or comments? Moving on to the next measure, SCR 176, supporting DLNR's Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation's efforts to execute its improvement master plan for the Honokohau Small Boat Harbor. First to testify from DLNR is Mr. Todd Tashima via Zoom. Mr. Tashima, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Todd Tashima for DLNR. We stand on our testimony in support.
Thank you very much. We received testimony in support from Dr. Holeka Goro Inaba from Council District 8, Hawaii County. And the following are all in support: Gary Sheehan, We Guys Fishing Tournament, and Mike DeKill and Rebecca Villegas. Is there anyone in the room or via Zoom that would like to testify? Mr. Mate.
Thank you, Chair. This will be an oral testimony. The Hawaii State Ahamoku, particularly the moku of Kealakehe on the island of Hawaii, stands in support of this. They've been working hard with the Division of Boating in the past to bring traditional knowledge to the forefront, and we believe that this is a good thing for them to do. We stand in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further testimony? If not, members, comments or questions? Representative Tarnas.
Thank you. Question for your Todd Tashima with DLNR Boating and Ocean Recreation. Todd, could you tell us, as this resolution requests, it's to execute its improvement master plan for the Honokohau Small Boat Harbor, will you require legislation authorizing you to move forward to implement this master plan? Because in your testimony, you say DOBOR has been pursuing a pilot program for a public-private partnership management model at one state small boat harbor, and Honokohau Small Boat Harbor would be an ideal candidate for such a pilot. Do you need authorizing legislation for that?
For that specifically, yes, but I'm not too involved with this project. I think part of the master plan is a parking plan as well, and I think we only need board approval for that.
So part of it you do not need statutory authorization, but for part of the plan you do.
Yes.
Okay, will the administration be coming forward with proposed legislation in the next session to seek authorization for carrying this out?
Most likely, yes, unless there's any hurdles in the way, but most likely, yes.
Okay, we look forward to receiving that as part of the administration's package of bills in the next session. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Any further questions or comments? Representative Morikawa.
Thank you. For DLNR, it's good to see a resolution like this being initiated, because I think DLNR, DOBAR would say, is experiencing a lot of problems at what you are calling the small boat harbors. And I'm referring to my boat harbor on Kauai, the Kikiola boat harbor. I think we have, and I think I saw in the news about another harbor, I think on the Big Island, Hilo side maybe, that we're experiencing a lot of tourism versus recreational fishing. Could you folks encompass all of these so-called small boat harbors into some sort of master plan to figure out how to deal with the use of these boat harbors? Because they are becoming a very popular business, tourism driven type of not recreation, but facility.
I think the answer to your question is yes. It probably is covered in the strategic plan that was released in 2019, but and I'd have to let my administrator expand on this in detail, but I think that we would look at the harbor program as a whole, but still group the harbors in specific districts together. So like, for example, Kauai or Maui district, just because of the region specific, issues or concerns that may come up.
Yeah, I think I'm feeling that it's urgent that we start dealing with this now, because we have fishermen pitted against each other and conflicts are starting to occur at certain boat harbors. And I think it's something that we need to be very wary of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Morikawa. Representative Kobayashi.
Question for DLNR. A long time ago, maybe like 20 years ago, in one of my few visits to Honokohau Harbor, someone mentioned that the harbor has two parts. One part is like state managed and another one is not. Is that correct?
Is this for a specific harbor?
Honokohau.
Honokohau. That doesn't sound accurate. As far as I know, the entire harbor is under state control.
Including that big parking area?
I'm not sure.
I
But-
think the reference was that parking area.
If it may have been in the context of the State Department that has jurisdiction, I think the jurisdiction in that area is shared between DLNR, DOT, and DHHL.
Oh my. Okay, thank you.
Representative Morikawa, please.
Thank you. And Rep. Kobayashi brings up a really good point, because that's what's happening out in Kauai too, because they have expanded the use of commercial versus recreational. There's no parking for trailers and for boats. So people are fighting for those spaces too. So just to keep in mind when you talk about some sort of movement forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the next measure, SCR 199, which is requesting OPSD and a bunch of other organizations to offer recommendations to improve stream maintenance. Our first testimony with comments is from the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, Mary Alice Evans. But via Zoom with comments, we have Dean Ueno from DLNR.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, and committee members. Dean Ueno with the Department's Commission on Water Resource Management. I'm with the Stream Protection and Management Branch. Here with me is Neo Fujii from our Planning Branch. And the department appreciates the intent of this measure and offers comments, in particular, noting the large number of state landowners within Waihole Valley. Also encourage the inclusion of the Waihole Waikane Community Association. And note that the resolution puts forth a large number of tasks, which has a very short time frame for completion. So we stand by with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Moving to our next testifier in support, John Rapun via Zoom. Okay. We received individual testimony in support from Kathleen Pahinui, Jeb Bassett, Ella Surowski, and Ann Mello. Is there anyone on Zoom or in the room that would like to testify on this measure? Seeing none, moving on to the next measure. Questions? Oh, excuse me. Members, questions or comments? Seeing none, moving on to the next measure. I apologize. SCR 201, which is strongly urging the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to work with DLNR to mitigate negative impacts to coral and other important coral reef resources while dredging in state waters. First testifier is Mr. Brian Nielsen from DLNR.
Aloha, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Brian Nielsen, representing the department on this resolution. We stand on our written testimony and support. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nielsen. We received testimony and support from Friends of Hanauma Bay, Lisa Bishop, and individual testimony and support from Ella Marie Surowski and Ann Mello. Is there anyone else on Zoom or in the room that would like to testify? Seeing none, members, any questions or comments? Chair Tarnas, please.
Thank you. Mr. Nielsen, could you give us a brief update on your recent meeting with the Corps on this matter? Because I know that there was a real issue with the recent dredging that they were doing, and you had to scramble quickly to try to deal with the potential impacts on the corals. What if you could just give us a brief update on your conversations with the Corps and how you think that will proceed?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Tarnas. So we did recently meet with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they actually were the ones to request the meeting. I think they understood that the planning, coordination, and communication that led up to this recent event in Honolulu Channel was not ideal for anyone, and they've provided an informal commitment to the state to coordinate in the future with any sort of dredging projects or harbor projects that they're involved in. That they're not required by law to consult with the state on these type of like dredging maintenance projects, but they did give us that informal commitment that they would try to coordinate better with the state and avoid this type of situation in the future. So, we walked away feeling hopeful, and we hope that, we can coordinate better in the future to avoid this type of thing.
And just as a follow-up, is this the Army Corps of Engineers, when they do dredging, is it only in commercial harbors or is it also in small boat harbors, recreational harbors?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I think there is dredging projects that occur in small boat harbors as well, and I think they do have some planned dredging projects. I'm not sure if the requirements for consultation differ between a state harbor versus a federal channel like Honolulu Channel, but I do believe that they help with dredging projects for state harbors.
Thank you. I suggest that if you could follow up with the Division of Boating on that matter and also have a follow-up meeting with the Army Corps, because I think that there are numerous occasions where dredging does occur in these small boat harbors, and we have the same issue. And I just want to make sure that whatever improved communication occurs for the commercial harbors or channels, that we also have an improvement in our communication regarding dredging in small boat harbors. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestions, and I'll do that, and I'll give you a follow-up as well, what I hear back. Thank
Great.
you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Back to you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, sir. Members, any further questions or comments? See none, moving on to the next measure, SCR 204, requesting the Department of Planning and Permitting of the City and County of Honolulu to publish on its website all decisions regarding waivers and variances. We received testimony in support, individual testimony in support from Kathleen Pahinui, Ella Marie Surosky, and Ann Mello. Is there anyone in the room or via Zoom that would like to testify on the measure before us? Seeing none, members, any questions or comments? Okay. Moving on to the next measure, SCR 205, requesting DLNR Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation in consultation with the Kaneohe Bay Regional Council to conduct a study of commercial activity on the bay to quantify the amount of non-permitted commercial activity. First, to testify with comments from DLNR is Todd Tashima.
Thank you, Todd Tashima for DLNR. We stand on our testimony providing comments.
Thank you. We received testimony, comments from LRB, from Charlotte Carter Yamauchi. We've also received testimony in support from Leimana Damate from the Hawaii State Ahumoku, who's here in person.
Thank you, Chair. This testimony, Leimana Damati, Hawaii State Ahumoku. This testimony is sent from Rocky Kaluhiba, who is the Ko'olapoko Ko'olapoko, and from Kawaikapu Okalani Hewitt, who is a spiritual guide of Ahumoku, but also he is a lineal descendant that is very active in Kaneohe Bay. We stand on our written testimony of support. I would like to just point out two things. The Kaneohe Bay Master Plan was developed and is used as a guideline to adopt implementation of rules regarding the regulation of all activities in Kaneohe Bay. There has been an increased usage and concern from the people on commercial activities, kayaks, tourists. You know, it's getting out of hand. So we believe that DOBOR is the right state division to consult with the Kaneohe Bay Master Plan. The people have worked with DOBOR in the past, found them to be fair, receptive, conscientious, and actually brave. Go and can actually contact all these illegal commercial activities and ask them to stop. But they don't have the enforcement capability. And that's something that the people, we're hoping that this resolution will assist DOBOR in coming up with enough information where they can enlist DOCARE for additional support. They do have DOCARE officers, but there aren't enough. So thank you for this testimony. I'll stand in support of it and will be available for any questions if needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mate. We also received testimony and individual testimony and support from Kathleen Pahinui, Jeb Bassett, Ella Marie Surosky, and Ann Mello. Is there anyone else in the room or via Zoom that would like to testify on the measure? Seeing none, members, any questions or comments? Chair Tarnas, please.
Thank you. Question for DLNR. In your testimony, you say that in order to effectively monitor for and enforce illegal commercial activity statewide, both DOBOR and DOCARE would need more staffing, and DOBOR would need to reallocate existing staff to ocean recreation activity monitoring. this, in this biennial budget, so last session, 2021 session, we appropriated additional funds and positions to DoCare. So could you explain to me how you are working with DoCare to enforce existing laws in this body of water where we're talking about here, Kaneohe Bay, where we know that this is there's ongoing illegal activity? So what are you doing with DoCare, who has additional staffing, to carry out enforcement actions? Please let me know.
So we work with DoCare for the more egregious violations, and our harbor agents will observe and monitor. Our harbor agent can't issue citations, but DoCare, they will call DoCare. DoCare will come and issue citations or formulate reports for us to use, and we take those to the Board of Land and Natural Resources, because the standard of proof is easier to meet with some of these, where it's a lot of circumstantial evidence that show commercial activity. I can't speak for DoCare, but I think they've had a hard time proving commercial activity when these alleged operators will claim that their customers are family and friends. And that's the typical excuse. So when we take these enforcement actions to the board, we show enough that the board is certain or is more sure that there's commercial activity going on, and they can issue an administrative fine on their own.
As a follow-up, how will this be fixed? It's pretty ridiculous to hear that you can't enforce the law because the suspected perpetrator lies to you. Is there any way that you can come up with rules, for example, that would require any commercial kayak to be, have written on it that whatever company it belongs to, and even if it's given as friends and family without payment, it's a commercial kayak and therefore it's commercial activity? Can you come back with a solution instead of excuses?
It's hard for us to try and address that. Not specifically with kayaks, but I guess water sports equipment in general. If we were to try to require companies to put their name on it, there are some individuals who just rent out from their house or on Craigslist or something. Those are the commercial operators we wouldn't be able to find. There are some recreational boat owners who run commercially from their boat, and they're not in our commercial, they're not seen as a commercial operator in our system. And it's hard for us to find out who those are without the public reporting to us or us finding out on our own. One example was an operator we had on Kauai. They were operating their boat, or they registered their boat recreationally, but they were running Nepali tours, and it was hard for us to go after them because there was nothing for us to penalize them for other than fines. We couldn't revoke a permit because they didn't have a permit, and their excuse was that standard excuse, oh, these are my friends from the mainland. So it was hard for us to prove that, and we ended up settling, and it was only because of other events that had happened that influenced the settlement.
Could you follow up with, I don't know, DOTAX, for example, and find out about if you can get access to their general excise tax returns, or somehow, again, we need answers and we need solutions. And it's just tough for legislators to hear from DOBOR saying that we just can't do the job. And, we depend on you as professionals who know this better than anybody to come up with some solutions. If they require legislation, come back to us with that. Rules, you can go through the board, but the lack of enforcement is just, it makes matters worse and worse. And you know that. It's just that we need some solutions. And I really encourage you to come back to us with those solutions. And, we'll work with you, but the status quo just can't continue. If you could follow up with that, and we look forward to getting any administration measures that would help make this situation better. So I look forward to maybe hearing from you and from DoCare about how this can be improved.
Yeah, we will work on that. Thanks.
Representative Morikawa.
For DLNR, yeah, I'm thinking, I think I know this is becoming more and more prevalent. on Kauai in my district because the popularity of getting to the Napali area. Would signage help, warning signs or something like no commercial activities? I'm not sure how you would do that on recreational boats, or only if permitted, would commercial activities be allowed or something like that? Because I guess if there's no signage too, people are gonna do it and not even care about the law or rules. Go
I
ahead.
think signage wouldn't help so much. Signage it would help us with enforcement more, just because we can show when we bring in enforcement that there was notice, as far as the notice requirement that they're operating illegally. But as far as the operators running, they're going to run regardless, just because there's money to be made, and their customers are usually less inclined to rat on them, because if the customer has gotten their money's worth, they have no reason to say, yes, we went on this tour with this person and we paid the money. They're more likely to follow the illegal operator's story and say, oh no, they're a friend. And one example where we actually were able to get to the customers before the tour could go out, it was a Big Island enforcement. And the Coast Guard was involved with that enforcement. The customers were forced to wait for an hour or two on the boat before they could even launch while the Coast Guard did their investigation. And that kind of aggravated the customers to the point that DoCare had some of them say, yes, we paid for this. And, it's regardless of if the customer knows it's legal or not, but that kind of not incentivized, but made it more likely that the customers were going to say that, yes, we paid for this tour. We're not their friends.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see this becoming a really big problem, especially now that so many more people are coming to visit our state. We need to get a handle on it. And I think because I have a beautiful recreational boat, I can ask certain people to get on for a nominal fee, cash only, and not need to report it. And it's just a thought. I mean, I think we're getting a little carried away with this activity. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, so Representative Kobayashi, excuse me.
Go ahead.
So I actually represent a part of Kaneohe Bay, and this is a huge concern. And many constituents call and they see even multi-floating volleyball courts out in Kaneohe Bay. And how often do you folks actually go out there and see? Because Kaneohe Bay is used a great deal. And so I'm just curious of how often you folks actually go out there and check.
I don't know the exact amount our staff goes out there and checks. I know that DoCare will go out on the more prominent holidays, especially the 3-day weekends, but those are specific enforcements. But I think, again, it comes back to the not having enough staff.
I worry, we hear from departments all the time that you don't have enough staff or resources, but the better solution is to tell us what you folks need and also legislatively what we can do. This is something that I brought up. I'm a freshman, but since I've gotten elected, I've brought this up, that we have issues of illegal commercial operators, Too Good Kayaks, who got fined $25,000 and were operating for years. It's no secret in these communities who is illegally operating. And so it's just frustrating for us because we tell us what you folks need so we can help you so you can help us, please.
Sure, we'll work on that.
Representative Kobayashi.
Maybe one way of getting at the illegal operators might be to monitor their advertising. This was done on Maui for the illegal short-term rental business. Usually these are pretty much confined to, these hunts are pretty much confined to internet advertising. But obviously these illegal operators are getting their businesses via some means of promotion or advertising.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
Members, any further questions or comments? Seeing none, that is our last measure. We're gonna go right into decision making. So the first measure is SCR 64. The vice chair's recommendation is to take this measure unamended as is. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, the vice chair's recommendation for SCR 64 is as is. Vice Chair, could you take the vote, please?
Thank you. Vice Chair recommendation on SCR 64 SD1 is to pass as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Ganadin.
Aye.
Representative Kobayashi.
Aye.
Representative Kong is excused for this measure and all future measures on this agenda. Representative Morikawa.
Aye.
Representative Ono.
Aye.
Thank you. And Representative McDermott is excused on this and all future measures in this hearing. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to SCR 119. The vice chair's recommendation is to pass SCR 119 as is. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, if we can pass this out as SCR 119 as is. Chair, for the vote.
Thank you. With 6 of our 8 members present, are there any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Not all. We have 6 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next measure, SCR 159. Looking at some of the testimony, I would like to amend this resolution. Instead of a report for findings and recommendations by OPSD, I would like to change that to a consultation implementation plan by OPSD and integrating the 7 points into this consultation plan. So that's my recommendation. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, the vice chair's recommendation is to pass SCR 159 with amendments. Chair, for the vote.
Thank you. Recommendation on SCR 159 SD1 is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Are there any members here voting with reservations? Any members voting no? 6 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next measure, SCR 174. The vice chair's recommendation is to pass this out as is. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, the recommendation is to pass out SCR 174 unamended. Chair, for the vote.
Thank you. Recommendation SCR 174 from Vice Chair is to pass as is. Are there any members voting with reservations? Any measures voting no? We have 6 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next measure, SCR 176. My recommendation is to pass this out as is. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, the recommendation is to pass out SCR 176 as is. Chair, for the vote.
Thank you. SCR 176, recommendation of the Vice Chair is to pass as is. Are there any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? 6 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to SCR 199. This resolution, I think, is already, if I want to point members to House Bill 1497, that will actually do a lot of the work that's already recommended in this measure. And so my recommendation is to defer. Members, any questions or comments? Okay. See none, moving on to the next measure, SCR 201. My recommendation is to pass this out as is. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, the Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass out SCR 201 as is. Chair, for the vote.
Thank you. SCR 201, recommendation to pass as is. Are there any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? We have 6 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, Sarah. Moving on to the next measure, SCR 204. My recommendation is to pass this out as is. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, the Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass out SCR 204 SD1 as is.
Thank you.
Chair for the vote.
Vice Chair, SCR recommends SCR 204 SD1 pass as is. Are there any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? We have 6 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to SCR 205. My recommendation is to amend this measure from LRB doing the report to the Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation of the Department of Land and Natural Resources to be conducting the report. This was also in the previous committee report that this change was supposed to happen and it just didn't happen. And so now we're amending it to add Dobar doing the report. Any questions or comments?
Comment.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure that's a study to quantify the amount of non-permitted activity gets at the real problem. What we want to do is we want to decrease the amount of non-permitted commercial activity, not count it.
Okay. So I think that's a good recommendation. So we should have Dobar also come back with a plan on how to actually decrease the unpermitted illegal activity. And so we'll add that into the bill as well. And I'll note that I'll work with the drafter to get that into the committee report. Okay. Members, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, the recommendation of the Vice Chair is to pass out SCR 205 SD1 with amendments. Chair for the vote.
Thank you. Recommendation of Vice Chair on SCR 205 SD1 is to pass with amendments. Are there any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? We have 6 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Seeing no further business in front of the Water and Land Committee, this meeting is now adjourned.